Rain of Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your Rant Line, Rave Line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there?
Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it.
Let's open up that race line! Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 571, coming to you at lunchtime. It's right at lunch. We're going to be previewing USC and Washington. I'm your host, Mike Garcia, joined with my co-host in the Rant Line studio in Los Angeles, Jesse. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Ruff, 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 ruff. Ruff, 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 ruff.
I just realized.
I should have done the Jesse voice that's actually like, oh.
I just realized what you're wearing and what we're talking about.
I was going to say this. I was going to bring this up.
Oh, boy.
So there is a dearth of border collie costumes online. So I had two options. One is to buy a St. Bernard costume, which is vaguely the right colors, or buy the Husky costume, which is, with the exception of the white wrap around the neck, basically Jessie.
Well, she has
straight up with the eyes.
She has the white around the neck on one side.
No, I mean the border collies have the white going around the neck.
Yeah,
and Huskies don't.
I mean the nose on that costume is a little interesting. There's like two little gray dots on the nose.
Yeah,
but
so it is a Husky. I will cop to that, but we are also we are very close when we have disposable income to just blow to getting an embark test on Jessie so that we can find out if she has Husky in her, because she is obviously a border collie, but the blue eyes, the noises, she's a little Husky. Not in that sense. I mean,
hey, let's not fat shame here. Let's not. As a kid who had to shop in the Husky section,
yeah.
let's not fat shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, Trojans and Huskies coming up this week, Saturday. Should be a good one at Husky Stadium in Seattle. We're going to preview it on this episode. As always, a big classic Big Ten matchup between the Trojans and Huskies. And Alicia, we did not discuss on the Rutgers fallout that USC is the first Pac-12 team to win a football Big Ten championship, and they did it against their arch rivals, UCLA, on Sunday. We were there at Home Depot Center, whatever the hell it's called now in Carson.
The Dignity Health Sports Park.
Sure. USC, football champions of the Big Ten, of the women's variety, women's soccer, beating UCLA 1-0. Big goal from Miley Hayes in the first half, like in the 40th minute or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a great goal, too.
Yeah, great goal. Great little setup. Right back to the center mid, little through ball into the forward. Perfect little goal. And the Trojans, Big Ten football champions. Who would have thunk? Yes, the Trojans, blew up the Pac-12 for this to win a football championship in the Big 12, Big Ten.
In the Big Ten, yeah. Exactly, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Alicia, we got a lot to get to. Let's get into it and start previewing USC and Washington. First thing off rip. Injuries. We don't know the injury situation. We know that SC was without a bunch of dudes last week. Kamari Ramsey. I think there was 4 of the 5 secondary starters who are out. We don't know what's going to go on this week because practice starts for the week in like 2 hours. Practice is closed. Lincoln Riley will meet the media on Thursday. Whether or not there's an update, then he'll give out the injuries is unknown. I would guess not. So we might have to wait a little bit. So everything in this podcast about the SC defense will be under the caveat of who knows what the injury situation will be.
Yeah, and that's what makes it tough. I mean, obviously that's what's tough about doing the preview episode as early as we prefer to do it later in the week, partly because we get better clarity about who is and isn't going to be available.
Yeah.
And so we're a little bit flying blind here, especially because USC doesn't really give a lot of information about the length of injuries to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guys that missed Saturday it could have just been a 1 week thing, but it could also be a 4 week thing, and we have no idea that USC isn't expecting to have them play for the next 4 weeks. So. And
the Big Ten injury report is like a Saturday thing. So
yeah.
That isn't now. And
basically there's no distinction between, on those Saturday injury reports, there's no distinction between like a 1 week injury and a multi-week injury. Now the only thing we can guess is that they were all listed as questionable, which isn't out.
Wasn't Tom Brady questionable every week for the Patriots?
He was, yes.
Yeah,
yes. So. But like on that injury update, we found out this past weekend that Gino Quinones is out for the season. Now, nobody knows why. I mean, I don't know why he is out for the season. Whatever injury he's dealing with has been picked up, and that's hurting USC's offensive line depth. But on the plus side, none of them were listed as out for the season, and none of them were listed as directly out. Now, there could be gamesmanship there, certainly, but you can find some potential positives.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But let's talk about the Huskies. Trojans and the Huskies, USC and Washington, locking horns at Husky Stadium in Montlake in Seattle, 4:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network on Saturday. The Huskies 4-4. Sound familiar? It probably should. They also have 2 wins in the Big Ten. They're 2-3. Jed Fish, in his first year after coming up from Tucson as the Arizona coach, had a great season last year with the Wildcats, and he went from bear down to bow down. And he's now, I just thought of that on the spot. It's pretty good, I think. It's pretty good. I think that's pretty good.
Good job.
He's now the head coach at UW. And interesting team this is, because this is one of the teams that we talked about in our season predictions episode before the season. Who the hell knows what to expect from Washington? If they were 10-2 or 2-10, you'd be like, sure, because they lost so many dudes. It was something like 2 starters on their two deep or 3
on
their 2 deep that were still there from the team that went to the national championship last year. Lost a bunch of dudes. Some of them went to, like Jeremy Bernard, went to Alabama with Kalen DeBoer. Then he had Jabbar Muhammad went to arch rival Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Big heel turn for him. And then, Michael Penix is in the NFL. And, Romo Dunze in the NFL, catching balls from Caleb Williams. So it's a Washington team that is in a weird transition, but they've got a bunch of transfers. And surprisingly, as we get into this preview, way more dudes performing for the Huskies this year that were there before that I think is sort of interesting. Unranked at 4-4, obviously. 36th in FEI, 35th in offense, 30th in defense. Pretty good across the board there. God-awful in special teams. We will get into this. We will do a special teams preview because I don't think we've ever needed to do one before to this level. But they are 120th in FEI in special teams, and honestly, that might be favorable. It might be. Sagarin has them at 52nd in the country. Let's talk about the Washington offense under direction of Brennan Carroll, former USC assistant, the son of Peter. Quarterback Will Rogers, transfer from Mississippi State, used to throw balls to a guy named Woody Marks out of the backfield. 72.3% completion percentage. Pretty good, thrown for over 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. Quarterback rating of 158.3. Safe to say, best USC quarterback they will face since Garrett Nussmeier. I think you can make an argument he might be better than Garrett Nussmeier. Fair?
I wouldn't make that argument, but
sure.
That's. I think you are correct that this is, on paper, the best quarterback the USC has played since. Well, I think he's probably in the Drew Aller category.
I always forget Drew Aller exists.
Yeah,
yes, that's
so
fair.
I don't want to disrespect Drew Aller, but he is.
And Drew Aller was great against the Trojans, with the exception of the interception.
Right. I would say that there are tiers of quarterbacks that USC has played so far, and I would be comfortable putting Will Rogers in the upper tier with Aller and Nussmeier compared to guys who had good games against USC but shouldn't be in that tier, like Billy Edwards and
Brosmer.
And Max Brosmer.
Yeah. And then you have the bottom tier, which is like Orgy and Kelly McManus. Yeah. First 6 games for Will Rogers, great. 12 touchdowns, 1 interception. The last two games that they've lost, another week in which SC is playing a team that has at least 2 games lost on the bounce. 1 touchdown, 3 picks. The splits are even more interesting. We'll talk about in a second for Will Rogers. But this offense also has Jonah Coleman in the backfield. Arizona transfer came along with Jed Fish. He's been pretty damn good. 118 carries, 785 yards, averaging 6.6 yards a pop, 5 touchdowns. The wide receiving core, the stars are holdovers from before. Denzel Boston, Giles Jackson, both of those guys have combined for 83 catches and over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns for Boston, 2 for Jackson. Cal transfer Jeremiah Hunter has been pretty much half the production as those guys as number 3. 24 catches, 297 yards, and a touchdown. And then there's Kaleki Latu, the transfer from Nevada. SC played him last season. 28 catches, 565 yards as a tight end. If the name sounds familiar, it should. He's the younger brother of Danton Lynn's favorite football player, Leatu Latu. He had a career-high 7 catches earlier in the month against Michigan, their win over Michigan, a revenge win in a rematch of the national championship game. But, Alicia, let's talk about this offense a little bit more. They gain a lot of yards.
Yes.
They don't score a lot of points. And I find it bizarre. They've outgained all 8 of their opponents in yardage. They've had 138 plays of 10-plus yards, the 6th most in FBS. If you heard both of those things, you're like, okay, this might be a 40-point offense, right? Only 7.2 of their drives are considered busted, gaining less than 10 yards. Again, sounds pretty good. 33rd in total offense, 35th in FEI offense. Okay, they're maybe like a 33-point offense, right? No. 23.3 points per game, which is 102nd in the country. Only twice have they scored 20 points in Big Ten play, 24 against Northwestern at home, 27 against Michigan at home. They're somehow 35th in available yards, but 87th in points per drive. What the hell happens along the way? It's mind-boggling. 95th in drive success rate on drives that reach the opposing 40. They get to the opposing 40, and weird things start to happen. They're 110th in red zone offense at 77.4, 112th in red zone touchdown rate at 51.6. So why are these things, what is the cause? They're not well in the red zone, but 41.2% on 4th down, just like Rutgers, pretty bad, 109th in FBS. They've missed a crap ton of field goals, which we're going to talk about more in the special teams segment. A ton of field goals, which, doesn't allow them to score more points. And let's circle back to Will Rogers at quarterback. His completion percentage drops drastically after crossing the 40-yard line, the opposing 40. Between the 40s, so midfield, Rogers' completion percentage is 83.1. That is number 1 in FBS. Technically number 2 because number 1 is Tyler Van Dyke, but he's played 2 games for Wisconsin. So realistically, Will Rogers, the best quarterback in the country in terms of completion percentage between the 40s. Between the 40s. Between the opposing 39 and the 20, he's at 63.3%, 20 percentage points lower. So maybe you're thinking, okay, is that normal? Are all quarterbacks like that? No. He's number 1 in the country between the 40s and number 55 in the country between the 39 and the 20. What the hell happens when they cross the 40? I don't know. In the red zone, Will Rogers is completing only 50%. That's 92nd in the country. What is happening to their offense and their ability to throw the football down? I don't know. I don't understand. Before the 40-yard line, Will Rogers is completing 80.1% of his completions with 1 interception. Beyond the opposing 40, 57.3 with 3 picks. I didn't include the passer rating there because I think the passer rating is warped by touchdowns. Obviously, you can throw more touchdowns inside the 40 than outside. So that skews the passer rating. But does it make any sense to you? Like you know how SC has the issues on defense on 3rd down? They're great, but 4th down, they're bad. This kind of feels like the same thing. Like is it a play calling thing? I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it.
I think that there's a certain it gets harder to do anything the more compressed the field is. So
yes.
When you get into the red zone, defenses start to gain the advantage because there's less space to cover. And it's entirely possible that Washington's play design or accuracy or just effectiveness goes down when the defense has less field to cover. You can't spread a team out as much vertically at least.
That makes more sense for the red zone, but how about between the 30 and the 40 and the 20?
The 40 and the 20. Yeah. I mean it as Kenny says in the chat, reminds me of those Graham Harrell offenses.
Yeah.
100%. As soon as USC got across midfield, it felt like USC would I felt like every drive would get across midfield and then it would just die at the 40.
Yeah.
And I think that part of that might be that, some players aren't great under that kind of pressure of okay, now we got to go score. It could be that these are situations where defenses are forcing Washington to play mistake-free football, and they can do that for 4 plays, but not 5, 6, or 7.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of reasons, and I don't know which of them apply to Washington.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it a little bit difficult here. But what I will say about this offense is it seems to me, and again, this is also difficult to find the root cause.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that this team is basically Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
When they are at home, they get that kind of stuff done. They are undefeated at home.
Yeah, but they're also not scoring a lot of points at home either.
Right, but they're scoring more points, and they're certainly better defensively. Should they have put up more points on Northwestern and Eastern Michigan? Yeah, but there are they only scored 35 on Weber State. So again, it could just be that they aren't efficient in the scoring part of things.
Mm-hmm.
But their numbers aren't helped by their road splits, which are all just significantly worse. And part of that is on the road, they've played Washington State in a neutral site, Rutgers, Iowa, and Indiana.
The neutral side of Seattle.
The neutral side of Seattle. Indiana and Iowa both have really good defenses. So, it could just be those are bad. But then this team lost to that Rutgers team that USC just played.
Yeah. Well,
so I think that I suspect that there is a multitude of explanations for why these issues are popping up for Washington, and it's probably 12 or 13 different things that are all contributing to just that one thing. At least that's the only guess I can make.
But it just feels a lot like SC, but on the other side of the ball, where SC has a really good defense, and if they could get over the fourth down stuff at the end of games, which they did against Rutgers, but nobody else, they would be this might be a top 15 defense, right? They might be really damn good. This Washington offense is 30 in the 30s in the metrics. If they're able to finish off their drives, they're in a top 15 offense.
Yeah.
And they're probably 7-1. With the only loss being to Indiana, a damn good team, right? And SC, if they're able to make fourth down stops on defense.
I don't know. They gave up 40 points to Iowa, so.
Okay, fair enough. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's at least a couple of more wins that they could have gotten. They should have beaten Rutgers, for instance, right?
But like you said, they're like USC, where you shouldn't have lost to Rutgers. USC shouldn't have lost to Maryland. It's just one of those games. But again, to me, I just keep looking at the home road splits. We talk about efficiency and all of that kind of stuff. Third downs at home, they're 48.7%. On away, they're 27.4%. Is that because they're playing better defenses on the road? It's entirely possible. But at home, their scoring percentage in the red zone is 88%, and on the road, it's 64%. Mm-hmm. It's. Again, it could be as simple as their more difficult games have been on the road than at home.
Sure.
But then you have to sort of explain the Rutgers and Michigan of it all. So
right.
I don't know.
I think it's hard to talk about home road splits because there is just a natural inflation at home versus the road, right? And vice versa. But this is why I like national rankings in those splits to sort of gauge, okay, is everybody just bad in those situations? And you talk about third downs. Third downs on the road, they're 27.45%. That's 123rd in the country. Bad, right? At home, they're at 48%, which, obviously it's going to be better, but that's 23rd in the country. That's literally 100 spots in the rankings of FBS teams. So that is a drastic change. I don't think the scoring offense is that wild. They're 89th in terms of points per game at home. So yes, they score more points at home, but I don't think that means that they're much better at home in that sense. But at least in terms of scoring, the peripheral stats, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's going to be an issue for SC because we know that SC, we'll get into it a little bit in a few minutes, is pretty not great on the road. Maybe not in terms of how games have played out, but lately, because SC's been in all those games, and you can say that they woulda, coulda, shoulda won of all of them, but they haven't, and you're ultimately judged by what you win and what you lose. So. The other thing to mention about Washington's offense, 11 sacks in the month of October, the most in the Big Ten. For comparison's sake, SC's offensive line has been pretty good of late relative to the first half, or the first month of the season. I don't think SC has a great offensive line, but they've gotten better, right? They've gotten better versus where they were. SC allowed 3 sacks in the month of October. Washington, 11, most in the Big Ten. So susceptible 2 sacks and pressure. Will that mean the SC will get home and get to Will Rogers? I don't know.
Well, and again, it's are these things that are impacted by the teams that they're playing more than anything, because the 3 teams they played in October are Michigan, Iowa, and Indiana.
Three good defenses.
3 good defenses.
Yeah.
At the same time, by comparison, USC played, Penn State in the month of October and didn't give up all of those sacks.
Sure.
So, but it, so like, again, you can sort of find areas where USC is doing very well, and that Penn State is doing very poorly. I just don't have a great sense of where Washington is at relative to their schedule.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned this because we got to talk about the defense. I think the defensive stuff is very. I don't know that it is 100%, but at least it will raise the thought that is this opponent dependent. This is a 4-2-5 defense coached by Steve Belichick. If that sounds familiar, it should. It's Bill's son. Led sort of by another bunch of Washington holdovers, a bunch of transfers. Montana State transfer Sebastian Valdez has been good off the defensive line as an interior lineman, 3.5 tackles for loss and a sack. But top tacklers is Cody Brenner, who was a holdover from last season, 55 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss. There's Alfonso Tupatala at linebacker, 45 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. There's veteran guys there. Cameron Fabikulainen. I think I got that right.
I'm gonna
roll
let
with it.
you.
I'm gonna take a W there. If that's wrong, please correct me.
Yeah.
31 tackles and a pick at safety. So he's a guy who was there last year too. But this is an interesting defense because on one hand, this is a defense that struggles to force havoc. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, a little bit.
108th in takeaways, 122nd in the country in tackles for loss. Not good. But let's talk about their pass defense. This, as a team, as a defense, 6th nationally in total defense, only allowing 272 yards per game. Very good. Very good. They are 5th nationally in yards per play, only allowing 4.43 yards per play. Very good. That's a very good defense. They are number 1 in the country. Second time this season, SC will face the number 1 pass defense in the nation, allowing only a $123.1 per game. Only Texas and Iowa State are allowing fewer yards per attempt than Washington is. Washington State threw for 245 yards, but no one else has thrown for more than 129. That 129, that's like a first half for Miller Moss.
Yeah.
Even despite, the interceptions and whatnot, right? Iowa had the most success against Washington in terms of efficiency, but they threw 14 passes. No team has completed 60% of their passes against Washington this year. But here's the caveat. Much like Minnesota, at the time, Minnesota hadn't played anybody in terms of passing offense. I think Minnesota's pass defense proved to be good. So take that for what it's worth. But Washington's opponent schedule through the air might honestly be worse than what Minnesota had. They've played 4 of the 5 worst passing teams in the Big Ten. Their biggest test was Indiana, who was playing without starter Curtis Rourke.
And by the way, in that game, even though obviously Indiana didn't exactly light them up in the passing game.
Yeah,
they did roll away with that game relatively.
Yeah, it's
relatively drama free. So
yeah, it's a very interesting pass defense because Ron Murdy in the chat says they're not very good against the run, so you can choose to run. Yes, I agree, and we're going to get into that right now. Like they're number 72 in the country against yards per carry. They've allowed at least 174 rushing yards in each of the last 4 games. If you're Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner, you got to be licking your chops. They're tied with SC for 97th in FBS, with allowing 6 rushes of 30-plus yards. They're susceptible to the run. The interesting thing is the pass defense has been so good that it hasn't mattered, because in terms of total yardage and all, and yards per play and everything like that, they're a top 10 defense in the country. But again, they haven't played anybody who wants to throw the ball, and SC likes to throw the ball. Miller Moss is twice the quarterback of anybody that they've played. And that's despite whatever you want to say about Miller Moss. They have not faced a passing attack remotely close to what SC wants to do. So it's going to be interesting, because we know that one of the reasons that SC is just so successful against or running the ball is because they throw the ball so much. That opens running lanes. It's lighter boxes to run into and all of that. I think this is going to be interesting, because is Washington going to, drop a bunch of dudes and then open up those running lanes, and then, SC's going to run for more than 174 yards because that's what everyone's done in the last month? I don't know.
I don't. I think that USC should certainly go into this game thinking that should be the game plan.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's as easy as just go out there and run all over them, because, again, and I don't mean to keep bringing this up, but some of the stats they're hard to trust a little bit here, because Washington defensively at home is holding opponents to 3.38 yards per carry. And on the road, they're giving up 4.79 yards per carry. And their sort of recent, the recent success that they've given up over the last month or so, they've had 3 road games. And how much of that is because October was a really, really difficult stretch for them.
Sure.
Against teams that were going to... Michigan just has to run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And Michigan...
by law, I think there's an ordinance from legislature.
Yeah.
From Michigan.
And effectively, Michigan loses that game because they don't do to Washington what they did to USC, which is they had a passing quarterback in that game, and they turned the ball over, and that killed them. Mm-hmm. Iowa, not a great passing team, but they go to town running. Indiana, with a backup quarterback, was probably always going to be leaning on their running game a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And Rutgers, we've established, is their offense was Kyle Monangai. So those teams were all set up very nicely to say, yeah, we're just going to run on this team, in part because we have to, but in part because that's where we're going to have our success.
Yeah.
USC, the psychology behind USC is just a little bit more tricky, because we all look at the stats and we all look at what USC is doing this year on the ground and say, well, yeah, USC should be running the ball more. When you have Woody Marks running the ball the way that he is, when you have Quentin Joyner behind him, you're averaging 5.3 yards per carry, 5.31 yards per carry this year. You should be running more. You should be running the ball more often. And on the road this year, USC is averaging 24 carries per game rushing. That's not that's not good enough. And we've talked about how there are some reasons why USC hasn't been running the ball in certain moments, but certainly USC is not a team that goes out there and says, we are simply going to run the ball.
I think there's, not to cut you off here, but I think there's the home road splits in terms of carries, I think is a little misleading, because SC only runs the ball 24 times per game on the road, 30.25 at home, but that's skewed by 2 of the home games, Utah State and Wisconsin, were games in which SC had big leads in the second half.
Yeah. And
they ran the ball 37 times in those games.
Yeah.
So on the road against Maryland, they, well, maybe not Maryland, but Minnesota, they were trailing Michigan, they were trailing. Like, those are games in which, SC sort of couldn't run as much as you would have wanted them to.
But by and large, outside of the games where circumstances dictated USC to just run the clock out, in games where USC wasn't running the clock out, and you could say that part of the reason USC loses to Maryland is because they don't run the clock out,
right?
To Minnesota because they don't run the clock out, but USC is a sub 30 carry per game team,
right?
Now, I want to make it clear, I want to see USC run the ball more. I want to see USC say, screw it, we're just going to hand the ball off and let Woody Marks go to town and see what happens. But I also think that it's not that simple because, again, USC is doing a lot of extended handoffs. Woody Marks is touching the ball like 40% of the time, which is not, like, that makes the under 30 carries thing less important when Woody Marks is catching the ball 4 or 5 times a game. Because if you just turn those into handoffs, your rushing totals would be higher. So it's not that simple in terms of the splits on that front. But we know that USC is an offense that will tend to throw the ball, that won't be the team that says we're going to hand the ball off 15 times in a row, which most teams can't do that. But, I don't think USC would ever even try. USC barely likes to hand the ball off 3 times in a row, let alone 4 or 5. So, I think that this matchup is set up for USC to look at and say we should be running the ball, because that's where we're going to have the most success. At the same time, this is a matchup that tells Washington USC is going to try and run the ball. Let's stack the box, and then there's this chess game between coaches that I think could end up being very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with all of that, but
no, I think it all makes sense. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it goes. And again, I just want to stress, like, one of the reasons SC runs the ball as effectively as they do is because they throw the ball.
Yeah. And because they don't run, like, the reason that the yards per carry average is as high as it is partly because they don't run the ball that often.
Yes. Now, they should run the ball more. Yes. Absolutely. But I just because they run the ball more doesn't mean that the yards per carry is going to be the same. So take that for what it's worth. Let's talk about special teams here, because I alluded to it earlier. Washington might be like the worst special teams team you've ever seen in your life. 133rd in FBS in special teams possession efficiency. Only UMass is worse. 126th in the country in kickoff return defense. 126th in punt return defense. 130th in net punting. 118th in field position. 130th in blocked field goals. They've had 4 blocked field goals and a blocked punt. No one in FBS has had more 30-yard punt returns against them, nor 30-yard kickoff returns against them. No other team has had more than each of those things. Kicker Grady Gross, who's missed 7 field goals, 7, that's the most in the Big Ten. 3 of them came in the loss at Rutgers, 2 in the home win against Michigan. I think that the crazy thing about these special teams numbers is usually when you see a team that struggles on special teams, it's like, okay, they're bad at punt return defense, but their kicker's fine. I don't think I've ever seen a special teams that is bad at punting, kicking, field goal kicks, kick on, like everything, like literally everything. They're not good at. I don't know, like how does this happen? I don't get it. Is like if you're Mekhi Lemon, if you're Zachariah Branch doing punts and Lemon doing kickoffs, are you not licking your lips here?
I mean, you have to be, but the tricky thing about teams that are bad at special teams is you have to wonder eventually if they simply do not give players like Zachariah Branch or Mekhi Lemon the opportunity to touch the ball. Now, it's entirely possible that their kicking situation isn't
Fixable.
Yeah, it's so bad that they can't even not allow opportunities to return the ball. But this is wild, guys. I don't think this is him though. I was looking to see who their special teams coordinator.
Jordan Papau.
Is that who did I miss it? Oh yeah, there it is. So their tight ends coach is their special teams coordinator. So whatever.
He played football at San Diego under Harbaugh, and then went to followed him to Stanford to be a recruiting assistant.
So I'm scrolling through their coaching stuff though, and they've got obviously Steve Belichick and Brennan Carroll, the sons of Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll. Then I'm going down and I run into Armand Hawkins, blast from the past. Mm-hmm. And then Luke Del Rio, who I have to assume is related to Jack.
That was the son who played at Alabama and Oregon State?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Caleb Wilson. Is this that Caleb Wilson? I thought their Wilson had 2 L's though, so...
Is it? Is it uwhuskies.com or whatever it is? Go Huskies.
Oh yeah, UCLA's Caleb Wilson of USC to UCLA fame.
Wild.
Is an offensive analyst for the Huskies. So obviously son of why can't I remember his first name?
Chris Wilson? Was it Chris?
Chris Wilson, yeah. Either way, it's just I was having a moment of, whoa, that guy's there? Oh, that guy's there? Oh, that guy's there?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. That's fun.
It's interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but the special teams, not good at UW. But neither is USC's road form. We've talked about this before. Trojans have not won a true calendar year in more than not won a true road game in more than a calendar year. They've lost 5 of the last 6 road games, with the only win in that stretch being a 50-49 win over Cal.
Sorry, just this is I say this with all love. This is the Nepo baby staff to end all Nepo baby staffs, because they also have Jake Lynch, the son of John Lynch, as one of their grad assistants on defense.
Well, remember when SC at one point had Warren G's kid, Jerry Rice's kid? There was like, SC's had Lil Romeo, Dennis Rodman's kid on the basketball team. It goes on and on. There's a lot. This is sports. It's all Nepo baby
stuff.
See,
and this might just be, as we get older, we start to recognize that these guys are the sons of other people. Yeah. So like, because that's happening more and more to me, that like, oh, I recognize these names, but it's still just pretty funny.
Yeah. But SC's road form, 0-3 in the Big Ten. 5 of the last 6 road games in general they've lost, with the only win being that 1-point win, 50-49 on a 2-point conversion stop at Cal last year, game that they should have lost. 7-6 overall on the road under Riley, 4-9 against the spread. They're rushing for 4.36 yards per carry on the road, 6.07 at home. Miller Moss's passer rating and the road is 130.5, 146.2 at home. They've allowed 9 fourth-down conversions on the road. Only Georgia Tech has allowed more. Obviously, that's dependent on how many times people are going to go for it on the 4th down and whatnot. But staggering stuff altogether. SC needs a road win in the worst way possible. But let's get to over-under, shall we?
So you're going over.
I'm going bold. Give me that over.
I got to take an under here. I got 3 unders to take.
I'm going to do an under here.
All right, Alicia, what do you got?
All right, I'm going 5.000. I'm just doing zeros all the way down so that we don't land on exactly a number. USC's rushing average. USC is averaging 5.31 yards per carry this year, obviously, but it's 6.07 at home and 4.36 on the road. UW is allowing 3.38 at home and 4.79 on the road. So either way, if USC had their rushing average above 5 yards, that will be above whatever average that UW gives up one way or another. But we have seen USC be very, very efficient in rushing, and it feels like USC wins games where they average 5 yards per carry. So,
yeah, I'm going to take the over on this. I think Washington's been susceptible to the run. I think that SC will try to throw the ball and sort of test that pass defense, but I think that should open up lanes there. I think if you're Belichick, I think you want to take away the pass, give up the stuff on the run because you know that SC's not going to do it. You want to focus on the pass, I think. So I think that'll open up the run a little bit. So give me the over on 5 yards per carry. My first over-under is 59.9 completion percentage for USC. Washington has yet to allow a team to complete 60% of their passes. Only twice Miller Moss has been under that. 53.8 at Michigan, 58.8 against Penn State, against a similar team in terms of pass defense profile in Minnesota. Miller Moss was at 60.5. So 59.9 completion percentage for Miller Moss. What do you got?
I'm taking the over on this one specifically because of the screens and passes that USC does do. I think that USC will be looking to work things underneath. Washington is not a team that gives up big plays. They're actually like top 5 in terms of opponent passing plays of 10 plus yards. They're number 2, by the way, in long passing plays. I think USC, they're not going to let USC try to test them long, and I don't know that USC is capable of that either way. So the passing game is probably going to be more of the screen and quick pass variety.
That's fair. That's what was successful last week. And Miller Moss completed 71% of his passes last week against Rutgers. So I agree. That should be the game plan, especially if Washington's going to sort of drop back and prevent the long passes to Jacoby Lane and whatnot. I think that would sort of make sense. What's your next over under? What again?
I got 1.5 sacks allowed by USC. UW is averaging 2.75 sacks at home, and obviously 2.75 sacks in wins because they have won all their games at home. But they're allowing 0.75 sacks in losses. Sorry, they're getting 0.75 sacks per game in losses. So again, there's some weird home road splits. Again, there's some level of opposition sort of questions, but this is a Washington team that has gotten to the opposing quarterback when they are at home. And USC, as you pointed out earlier, is doing quite a good job of not allowing sacks in the last month. So this could be a big factor in whether or not USC's offense is effective. Are they able to avoid giving up 2 sacks?
I'm going to roll the dice here and take the under. I don't know how good I feel about this. 1.5 is very tricky. If it would have been 2.5, I think it would have been an auto under for me. 0.5, it would have been an auto over. 1.5 is so tricky. It's going to be 1 or 2. I think it'll be 1 or 2. I'll roll the dice and take the under just because SC, that's where SC's been the last couple of weeks. But I think it's going to be very fascinating to see how that goes. My second one is over under 34.5 for Makai Lemon's longest kickoff return of the game. 34.5. Again, Washington is boo-boo sauce on special teams. 126th in kickoff return defense, averaging 25.7 yards per return. Washington's Joseph Hyman had a 96. Where did I get 67 from? Those numbers aren't even there. 96-yard return against Washington. Wasn't a touchdown, but 96 yards. Wazoo's Leighton Smithson had a 43-yarder last week against Rutgers, of course. Makai Lemon in his first game as the kick returner for the Trojans had an 80-yard return that set up a score.
Yeah, I'm taking the under on this, not because I don't believe in Mekhi Lemon. I'm just playing the numbers. I think there is a universe where he doesn't get any returns. I think there's a universe where even when he has a good return, it's not more than 30 yards. Returns are just very tricky. They're not a thing that teams, even good teams that are really, really good at returns, they're not a thing that they consistently break. They sort of come when they come. And I as bad as UW's return defense is, I think the likelihood, the probability still stands with the under.
All right, fair enough. It's gonna. This is gonna sound really reductive, but he's either gonna get it or he's not.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, it's one of those things. What's your last over under? What again?
All right, we are doing 41.18 fourth down percentage for Washington. This is very simple. I'm sorry to keep pushing this one, but USC's fourth down defense is terrible. UW is averaging 41.19 on 17 fourth down conversions so far this season. Will USC hold Washington below their average?
No, I'm taking the over. I think it'll be like 50%.
Yeah.
So
that seems to be the
50% is the going rate, and 50% is where SC's been the last 2 weeks. 3 of 6 for Maryland and Rutgers. So give me the over. If they do it twice, then it's 1 of 2. Then that's an over for me. So I'll take the over. I think the game absolutely. If that under hits, dare I say SC wins? I think that's a critical point.
I mean, yeah, it would go a long way.
Yeah. My last over under is similar to yours about sacks. I'm just going Washington tackles for loss. 3.5. 3.5 Washington tackles for loss. They're averaging 2.4 per game in Big Ten play, which is dead last in the conference. Not only dead last, but like it's a full tackle for loss, fewer than anybody else in the conference. Again, they don't create havoc on defense. They get stops in other ways. They had 0 tackles for loss last week against damn good Indiana. Only 2 against Iowa the week before. SC is allowing 4.67 tackles for loss in Big Ten play and 6 per game on the road. They allowed just 1 last week against Rutgers. 1 negative play against Rutgers. What say you? 3.5 Washington tackles for loss.
I'm going over. I should be at the point where I trust USC's offensive line to not be giving up 1 million tackles for loss.
Yeah.
I should be there. I don't know if A, I'm not there, and B, I fear that when I am there, then that's when the dam will break. So I'm just taking the over because I can't not.
I think that's fair. 3.5 is a low line for tackles for loss, but again, like Washington's just been so bad at creating negative plays.
And Rutgers Rutgers was bad at creating negative plays, and guess what? They only had 1 tackle for loss last week.
Right.
And, it came to pass, so.
Yeah. All right. Game predictions. Vegas spread, when we put together the rundown, was 2.5 in favor of the Trojans. FEI, which, you know me, I love the FEI projection. I feel like they're pretty spot on every single week with the Trojans. Is saying that SC wins 30.5 to 24.1. That's like, if I didn't have the USC PTSD of all their losses on the road and how many of them have been similar and all that stuff, 30-24 might be like my prediction. Like if I just looked at the stats without looking at home road splits and knowing the records, that seems almost exactly what I would have predicted. But, alas, make your real prediction.
I'm a sucker. USC 27, Washington 24. I actually think this is a case of optimistic, Alicia. We're going to this game.
We are.
Which means I should pick USC to lose.
Yep.
Because it just feels like the universe is going to make sure that it's not a win. I just, but I'm a sucker, and USC should win the game because USC should have a better team than Washington if USC could play well on the road.
Right.
So I'm a sucker, and I'm picking the win.
Alicia, you and I are going to the game. It's our first game that you and I will be sitting together at a game in 11 years.
Since the Vegas Bowl,
Vegas
which
Bowl.
USC won.
Yes. But we also, because of COVID and then, your role at Fanside changing and whatnot, and not writing for Randoftroy.com and all those things, we have not gone to games in a while. Like, in 2019, I'm pulling up the 2019 schedule. We went at BYU, at Washington, at Colorado, and at ASU. And at Cal. We went to 5 road games in 2019. SC lost the Cal game. No, SC won the Cal game. Won the Washington State, the Arizona State game.
Won Colorado.
Won the Colorado. Okay, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. I was gonna sit here and say SC always loses when we go to road games.
No, because those road games were like road trips. SC always loses when we fly to games, i.e. the bowl games at AT&T.
We did fly to Colorado.
We did fly to Colorado.
Yeah, and SC lost every trip to Texas.
Has SC won a game where we stayed with
friends and family?
With friends and family.
No.
There you go.
Washington 21, SC 20. Again, my head says that 30 to 24 FEI thing feels right. But
but the home road, the
home road
thing,
issues.
Yeah.
I
think you're more likely to be correct on this than I am, to be quite honest. I'm just a sucker.
Yeah. Big sucker. I dare I say, they need like a mint sucker of some sort, like Mint Mobile. Alicia, that's where you got to go to switch your mobile provider and get $15 a month on a wireless deal. No hoops, no BS. Mint Mobile said it's easy to get $15 a month for mobile, and turns out it is when you get a purchase of a 3-month deal. Super easy to join their sites. Go to mintmobile.com/Troy. There you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your own phone number along with your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile. Get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/Troy. That's mintmobile.com/Troy. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Troy. $45 upfront is required. It's equivalent to $15 a month for the 3-month plan. New customers on the first 3-month plans only. Slower speeds above 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. mintmobile.com/Troy. Alicia, we got mail.
You've got mail.
Let's get to it. It starts with an email. We've gotten a lot of emails. We got the great email, the all-time Mount Rushmore email from Tony in Denora, PA, that we talked about in the last episode. We've gotten one from, last episode we got one from Max, who said he's listened to us for like a decade, never emailed before. Now, we got another. I believe this is the first email we've ever gotten from Les from Portland, Oregon, who says, 13-year devoted listener of you two. 13 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at that.
Les says, Michael, one of your more descriptive terms is jiggle bag as a verb. The internet defines it as a bag for mixing meat with baking products. But I don't think that's what you mean. Please help. Les from Portland. That's not what I mean.
I just love the idea of somebody going on like Urban Dictionary. Do we need to go
and create our own?
Create an Urban Dictionary.
We could. We probably should. I'm bummed that 84 million people listen to us every year. I think it might be 86 million now.
Okay, there are
and nobody's entered it in Urban Dictionary. What are you doing?
Somebody entered in Urban Dictionary in 2015 2 definitions, both nouns.
Are they readable on this?
One
program?
of them is readable and one of them is not.
Okay.
So, as Les says, one of them is a bag used to mix meat with baking products.
Yeah.
And one is a
part. In other words, like that's how you would bread chicken tenders.
Yes, how you'd bread chicken tenders.
Yeah.
And one of them is a piece of anatomy that I'm not going to say on the podcast.
Yeah. Would it also be a city in France? Never mind.
I don't.
Okay. Anyways.
Are you going to explain it?
Jiggle bag, yes. Jiggle bag means mollywop. What does it mean when you're getting mollywopped? I like the term because, as the term mollywopped, you're getting mollywopped. You have, it's ma-nua. Ma-nua. Only Cam will get that. You have the first part of the word is just gibberish. Jiggle. Yes, jiggle is a word, but it's essentially a funny sounding word. It's essentially gibberish in this term. And then bagged. If you're getting bagged, you're getting beaten, body bagged, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're getting bagged, you're losing, right?
Yeah.
So funny term, verb. And you can do this with anything, like Bertle benched. Oh, we got Bertle benched. What is Bertle? I don't know, but getting benched is,
our friend Saman loves swizzleboarded.
Yeah, it's another one.
Yeah, you just got, USC got swizzleboarded.
Koodle-turfed.
Koodle-turfed. That's good.
Yeah. You just think of these things like
Koodle-picked.
Sniffle-bunked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like funny sounding or gibberish word at the beginning followed by a verb. So pick a verb, punched, okay? Pick a funny word, poo-poo. You got poo-poo punched. You know what I mean? There you go. There you go.
Wasn't expecting that one. That's fun.
It was right there for the taking. All right, I'll tell you what else is right there for the taking. Alicia, before we get to the rest of the mailbag, I'll tell you about Underdog Fantasy. I'm super pumped because last week, went into my Underdog Fantasy app, downloaded it along with 5 million Americans that are playing Underdog Fantasy, and it felt good. Kyle Monangai, Woody Marks, Kai Lemon. Didn't work out for me, but this week
you were close.
It is because Alicia, Underdog Fantasy is great. There's these stat projections. You can just say whether your player that you're picking will be higher or lower than those stat projections. So here's what we're riding with this week. Dylan Gabriel. I'm going higher than 4.5 rushing yards at Michigan. That's a good pick, right?
Yeah.
Good pick? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Davis Warren, higher than a half interception for Michigan against Oregon.
I was
easy higher, right?
When you said higher, I was like, what could you possibly be thinking
Interceptions.
Davis Warren is going to do higher? Interceptions.
Higher interceptions, yeah. Kalel Mullins, higher than 60.5 rushing yards against Oregon.
Yeah.
You agree?
I like it.
Yeah. So making Underdog Fantasy picks is that straightforward. It's that easy. Go to Underdog Fantasy's app, their website. It's legal in California. It's playable. Signing up is even easier. Just head over to their simple-to-use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com with the promo code Reign of Troy, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code RANTOFTROY to claim your new customer special of a free pick in your deposit offer. It must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates, including California. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 52342. And in New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. All right. Alicia.
You've got mail.
More mailbag. More mailbag. Tim says, I feel like getting poo-poo punched is a side effect from one of those medicine commercials during football games. Yes. We also got a comment in the chat from Cam. I'm so over political ads. This is the last weekend, folks. You've almost made it. You're almost there. One more weekend, and then you never have to see any of that. With that said, I want to speak to you guys about a very important issue to me, and I hope to you. I need you to support Yes on 55. Yes on giving the 55 to a USC linebacker of some sort. Don't have it not given out to anybody. Yes on 55. Eric Gentry next year, give him the 55. Somebody, wear the 55. Yes on 55. Or yes on 55 here at Rant of Troy. Yes on 55. Hashtag yes on 55.
I'm Alicia D'Arzola, and I approve this message.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Other stuff in the chat.
If you look at Slack, I have collected some questions for you, Michael.
My Slack isn't working. You read the Slack question.
All right. Jixer Squid.
Mm-hmm.
Question: why hasn't USC been able to get good field position following kickoff returns?
Because they haven't had good kickoff returns.
That's the big issue. Is certainly punt returns is a function of the defense allowing teams to move the ball closer to midfield before getting stops. And that sets up bad field position in the punt game with the punts. But on kickoffs, it's just that USC has not either had very many returns, or when they have tried to return it, it hasn't gone well. So, that's USC's field position has not been great in general across the board this year. So that's something that they can hopefully do better at.
It could change if Mekhi Lemon ends up being that dude on kickoff returns.
Yeah.
80 yards last week. Washington, not great in kickoff return defense, so maybe that's something that changes this week.
Yeah. All right, we got a question from Kenny. If Washington loses this game, do they make a bowl?
No.
My resounding answer is absolutely not.
Does the loser of this game make a bowl?
Both teams need 2 wins in their last 3 if they lose. USC would need to beat Nebraska and UCLA. I think it's tough. It's tough for either team. Whoever loses this game. I think if Washington loses this game, there is no chance they make a bowl.
They play SC at Penn State, home against UCLA, at Oregon.
So, of the 2, USC has a much better chance of going to a bowl if they lose this game.
Right.
But I think definitively we can say that Washington will not go bowling if they don't beat USC.
That's fair. Washington loses, SC wins. I think Washington's chance for a bowl is 10%. Could be less. SC with a loss, I still think the chance for a bowl is 60%. 50%.
Well, especially because the next 3 games are all in Los Angeles, and we know that USC's road issues are a big reason why they lose to Minnesota and Maryland. But Nebraska, getting them at the Coliseum does make a difference, and then UCLA at the Rose Bowl, it's a rivalry game, throw out the records, all that kind of stuff. But USC will be favored in that game either way.
Yeah.
And then Notre Dame, who the hell knows? But the odds favor USC there. Certainly more than they favor Washington, but it would be tough Because
Yeah.
at that point, if USC loses to Washington, at that point, like Nebraska might be a psychology game more than anything.
Mhm.
Like, does the team just give up?
All right. What else you
Okay,
got?
and then we got Rama Murdy. How do we use this game to build off of last week's win? I mean, just win. Building off of last week's win is just stringing together 2 wins in a row.
Yeah.
USC hasn't really been able to do that this season, and they certainly haven't been able to win on the road in these circumstances. So,
Yeah.
just winning under any circumstances at Washington is building off of Rutgers.
Yeah, I think that you need to continue to prove it. Not in any situation. Every week is another week to prove your merit. But I think you need to prove that the defense getting the 4th down stops in the 4th quarter against Rutgers and not allowing any fourth quarter points is something that is repeatable. And especially when you haven't done it on the road. It was good. Doing it against Rutgers was good because as a proof of concept that we can do this if you're on defense, right? Look, we can get the 4th down stops, but you still haven't done it on the road, so you still need to prove that you can do it on the road there. So I think you use the whatever mental boost you got from doing it against Rutgers to doing it in Seattle. And I think it also helps that like Washington's a familiar foe. SC has played Jedfish several times. They know what the purple and gold looks like. Some of these players have been to Husky Stadium before. Woody Marks, I think he knows who Will Rogers is, and not just the State Beach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anything else in Slack? I mean,
Those are all the ones that I saved. I don't think I saw any other questions.
I saw one from Heck Views.
Oh, God.
Name cities in Idaho.
Can I go first? Post Falls.
There you go.
Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene, yeah.
Boise.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
That's it?
I have family in Post Falls. I have visited them and gone to Coeur d'Alene, and I am aware of Boise State. That is the extent of my knowledge of Idaho.
Okay. Nampa. Twin Falls. Idaho Falls. There's a Rex. Is it Rexburg? I think it's Rexburg. Pocatello? I believe.
Rexburg is correct.
I think Pocatello. Am I saying that right? I think is Pocatello where BYU Idaho is, or is that in Rexburg? It might be in Rexburg. Rexburg is a big like Mormon settlement in Idaho. What else is there?
BYU Idaho is in Rexburg.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna ask where where Iowa State is, and Rama Murdy just put it in
Idaho
the chat.
State.
Idaho State, like the university.
Is Idaho State in Nampa?
No, it's in Moscow.
Moscow is Idaho.
Oh, University of Idaho is in Moscow.
Yeah, I think Idaho State isn't it in? Is it in Pocatello? Or is it Idaho Falls? It might be Idaho Falls.
State University is in Pocatello.
Pocatello. There it is.
They have locations in Idaho Falls.
This is killing me because I feel like I should know more than this. I think I'm going to have to call it there. That's a tough one. Idaho's a tough one, folks.
I want to look at Idaho cities by population and see how many you've gotten. You're missing one of the top 5.
One of the top 5?
Yes.
Can you give me a letter?
Wait, no, I don't. You might be missing 2 of the top 5 because I can't remember if you said.
Hold on. We said Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, Pocatello, Rexburg, Nampa, Boise. Is that all we said?
I think
Moscow.
they're about. So you're missing 2 in the top 5. One begins with an M and one begins with a C. The one with an M is one of 3 cities in Idaho that have more than 100,000 people.
With an M.
M.
I'm going to have to tap out. What is that?
Meridian.
Never would have got that.
And then the other one has 68,000. It's Caldwell, Idaho.
Never would have got that either. Those must be like Boise suburbs or something. I've never heard of them. Don't know. Don't know. Couldn't do it. West Texas Mike says Elisa goes to Coeur d'Alene for paramilitary trainings. Is that
what it's known for?
Well, the Coeur d'Alene Post Falls area is very racist. No, like literally, like that's where like the Proud Boys are from.
No. I was saying that. I was going to say that tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what West Texas Mike was alluding to, but I'm just saying it's an area that has a history of those kind of things. Coeur d'Alene is where my grandpa, who served in World War II on a Navy minesweeper, he was the guy who pulled the trigger and shot the gun to explode the mines, which is kind of cool. He would go to reunions for Navy World War II vets and stuff like that in Coeur d'Alene, which seems like a random place to me. Like, why isn't it in San Diego or Honolulu or Annapolis or Norfolk or something like that? Like these naval cities, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, but like there's no ocean in Coeur d'Alene.
I have noticed that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No submarines there.
None. But isn't the thing? What's the thing? Where do they do the cruise ship?
Portland. Columbia River, Portland.
Oh, okay. Right.
And you can do a cruise up the Columbia River, American River cruises. Go up the.
See, this is funny. West Texas Mike, he says, I didn't say Alicia agreed with everything they did. Just thought she'd go up there every now and then and work on her shot. Thank you, West Texas Mike. For the record, I do not agree with it. But it is funny because with my cousins up there, I have never shot an actual gun, but that's where I first shot a BB gun. So, and where my dad and my brothers did shoot actual guns.
There you go.
So,
would you say skeet shooting?
I don't know what they. I think they just shot.
When
it
you're
like
shooting
bottles
skeet, are you going skeet, skeet, skeet?
Skeet, skeet, skeet. I know for a fact my cousins were not saying that.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. Yeah, we'll be back next week, next Wednesday, to talk about the SC Washington game. It's the Fallout episode. No CarCast this week. We've talked about that before. No CarCast. I'm sorry. I'm sure we'll put up something on social media or something. I don't know, because we're sickos. So check that kind of stuff. We love you guys. We'll see you next week, Wednesday. Until then, we'll see ya.
See ya.
See ya.
Ruff, ruff.